Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and I'm going to be talking about what it means to be authentic. Now, first of all, let me say up front, there's a lot to be said about authenticity, and we're not going to learn all of it in this podcast episode, but I'm going to, I think, cover some of the things that I think would be very beneficial to you in terms of helping you to become more successful in your business, helping you to feel more comfortable with not having everyone think like you, or you not having to think like the rest of the group. Because we're living in a time where having putting up a facade, well, that feels safer, or adopting the way others think, or agreeing with every single feeling that they have, that which is groupthink, agreeing with the group, that is how it should be. And when I talk about groupthink, yes, there are times when groupthink is very beneficial because groups come together perhaps for a common reason to achieve a common goal. That's fine. But when you have to think like the rest of the group because of your race, because of your gender, and it's all about them putting you in this box and telling you who you are and who you're not. And of course, being African American, I'll use an example. If you don't act a certain way, someone will say, "Oh, you're not black." And I think to myself, really? And you're in control of that? I think not. God made me this way, so hey. That's not your call as a human being. But the point that I'm making is, as a result, people will put up this facade so that they can fit in. And you know what? The thing about that is, when it comes to being authentic, it's really important that I think that we all embrace the idea that we're going to be authentic in this day and time. Because if you actually want to succeed, and this is the beautiful part about things, and there's always a positive side to what people consider to be negative or not good. But the beautiful part about being authentic in this day and time, and having the courage to do that, is the people who are the most authentic. Those are the people that are actually succeeding. Those are the people that are making it. Carbon copies, I can't say they won't succeed, but let's just say they don't do as well, because they're trying to fit in, but in their minds, they're thinking of someone else, and they're thinking of being someone else and behaving in a manner that's not, that does not align with who they believe they are or who they would like to be. And so as a result, we can feel each other's energy, you guys. And so the people in that group, somehow, how they don't connect with that person. So authenticity is really important, not just for you, but for everyone that you're coming in contact with. It's for them too. People will get the maximum benefit from you when you're being you. And here's the thing, the thing about that, and why you want to be authentic, is because we need different types of people in this world. We don't need everyone thinking the same. And people argue with other people because they don't think the same, or they criticize them, or they say there is something wrong with them in a bad way. Okay. Do some people perhaps need to change their behavior? Only if they're saying things derogatory or doing things to intentionally hurt someone. Okay. But if they're operating in a way that doesn't hurt anyone, and that's who they are, by all means, they have a role to play in this world. So we need those different types of people in this world. We need people who are direct, as opposed to people who flounder around the truth. Sometimes we need to have that. And there are some people that can't handle that. But we also need the other side. We need the people who flounder around the truth and, actually kind of don't really say what they're thinking and don't say the truth. Okay. So we need all kinds of people, if you're any of the above. So maybe that made you feel better. I don't know. But here's the thing. Being authentic is all about it's about who you are on the inside. When I did the podcast on Monday, one of the things I shared was that being authentic, it's not about just about your hair. It's not about your clothes. It's not about the outside. It is, but only a little. Okay. It's only about the outside a little. And the part of authenticity that's about the outside is when you're dressing the way you want to dress, not because it's the latest fashion or you're carrying a brand name purse because you want to be seen. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain circles where if you're going to travel in a certain circle, you might want to carry that purse. Okay. And that doesn't make you fake unless you can't afford the purse. But if you can afford it and you want to carry it, by all means do it. So now you guys, by now you can see why this subject is not, there's a lot to say about authenticity and it's not necessarily an easy subject to unpack. However, I have some tips here that I'm going to share as to what it means to be authentic. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you know if you're authentic. And then I'm going to share what you can do perhaps to jump into the authenticity zone. Okay, because remember, this month is all out April. And in order for you to go all out, you have to be you. You can't and this is not something where you have to believe what I'm saying. You just look at results. Results never lie. And that's the thing. People might lie to themselves. They might lie to other people. But if they're trying to get a certain kind of results and they're not getting those results, there's some things that they have to change. So they do have to kind of go into redesign mode. So sometimes a part of going all out begins with redesigning and making some decisions about who you are and how you want to be and how you want your life to look. And actually how you want to be perceived. Some people will say, well, he's a phony or he's a user or he's this and that. And nobody likes to be perceived in that manner. And they may not even be that way, but because they're not authentic and they're not in touch with their own authenticity, they perhaps come across that way. So let's press on here. So the point is what you look like, what you wear, all of that has little to do with your authenticity. It's about who you are at your core. Who are you on the inside? So what does it mean to be authentic? Well, first of all, you have to stop fighting to keep a facade that's not serving you. And it's amazing when people actually go the extra mile to defend what's not working. Again, all you have to do is look at the end results. If you're getting results and being this person and you feel good about it, then you know what? By all means, keep being that person. But if you're not getting results, then perhaps you need to kind of check your authenticity meter, because it is about who you are at the core. So what does it mean to be authentic? Let's kind of get back to that. Well, first of all, it means knowing and being who God made you to be. In other words, you need to know who is it God made me to be? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What kind of person am I supposed to be? Because a lot of times we are raised a certain way. We are raised in a certain environment. So we grow up thinking certain things about ourselves that are incorrect. And as a result, there's something inside us. And as human beings, this is the beautiful part. God doesn't leave us out there without any help, because there's a Holy Spirit in you that's going to prompt you. Okay, but if you silence it enough, eventually you won't hear it, or even feel it. But the point that I'm making, but you have to do a lot to make that happen, I think. I'm pretty sure. Okay, I was going to say I'm not sure on that, but I'm sure. But the truth of the matter is you have to know who is it God made me to be, not what mankind thinks about me. So if, in other words, what is my talent? What am I holding back? When I'm thinking something, like, for example, if you're in a meeting or if you're participating in some group and you see that things are going in the wrong direction, are you afraid to speak up? See, there's a way that you can speak up and be polite about it, because nowadays people get really offended so easily if you don't say what they want you to say, think the way they want you to think, and if you don't deliver it the way they expect you to deliver it. We all have our ways of delivering things, and I know the whole thing is not what you say but how you say it. I get all of that, but now we're kind of living in a time when even if you say it in the nicest way possible, but you're coming from a position of truth, people are offended by it. But the truth of the matter is God wants you to be authentic. There is a verse in Psalms, and I believe it's Psalms 51, verse 6. And it says, you desire truth in the innermost being. And that particular verse kind of lets you know that God expects you to be genuine. And you know what? Authenticity is a kind of honesty and a kind of integrity. And I find it interesting that people who want to judge others the most, those are the people who have to look to see if they themselves are being authentic with who they are and how they want to be. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying they need to take a look at their own authenticity. Why? Because it's easier for us to look at someone else and point the finger and pick out what's wrong with them than it is for us to look at ourselves, because that's not always an easy thing to do. So you have to know and start being who God made you to be. And this might mean letting go of the stereotypes and never embracing the idea that someone else has put into your head. In other words, that box that someone has put you in. And so that's something you want to consider. Here's this number 2. When it comes to being authentic and what it means to be authentic, you start discovering the purpose that you're supposed to serve. You know, why are you here on this earth? And when you start looking at that, then you ask yourself the obvious question, obvious but not so obvious. The obvious question to ask yourself is, am I serving in that capacity? Am I serving the purpose for which I was put here on this earth? Or am I doing something that someone else said I should do because it's I can make a lot of money, or because it was handed down to me? For example, people who work a business. Why do you work this business? Well, you know, my dad groomed me for it. My dad said I should work this business. Dad might have been right. Dad might have been wrong. But you know the answer. If he was right and you love that business, by all means, you carry on the name. But if you actually don't like the business, you have a hard decision to make. Okay. See, when you're serving the purpose for which God put you here, now you are tapping into your true, authentic self. So what else does it mean to be authentic? It's about being the best that you were made to be and you do that by becoming self-aware. Okay. In other words, you have to observe the areas that need strengthening and confidently embrace your strengths. Okay. Don't see that as being conceited. Don't see that as being obnoxious. Don't see it as the fact that you have to tone everything down so that you can kind of create a safety zone for other people. No. Now, there's a difference between having the gift, knowing the gift, and being obnoxious and boisterous, and in other words, bowling over people because you want to make them feel inferior. Okay, that's not authentic. Why? Because none of us are built that way. That's a learned behavior. And so that's not how God made us. So back to the strengthening part, but you want to embrace your strengths. And it's okay for you to acknowledge what you're good at. It's okay for you to actually start operating in that field. And if you can turn it into a business and you decide you want to do that, you can do that. But if you say, you know what, I'm very good at this, but I prefer to either partner with someone in a business, or I prefer to actually work for a salary. See, there's no judgment there. If you're doing what you're called to do, then by all means, go and do it with confidence. Embrace those strengths. And here's the other side, though, to authenticity. Is that you also have to look at the part of you that doesn't serve you and other people that you perhaps need to let go of, because that part may not be authentic. In other words, remember I said authenticity is about you being you. You don't have to be who other people want you to be, but whoever you are, it should never hurt other people. Okay, so it's not about you hurting people. And I could do a whole podcast on that in terms of some of the people that will come into your lives who you think are trying to hurt you, but they're actually trying to help you grow, and they're trying to teach you some things. Life will send you some teachers in different disguises. So that's the short version of that, because everything is designed to get you on track and put you on the path to becoming your best self, your higher self. Okay. Think about it. If something unpleasant happened to you, or someone treated you in a way and you didn't like it, then there's something in you that comes out and starts to say, you know what? I don't have to put up with this. I'm better than this. And then you start to rise up. You start to become better. I don't like the way they treated me. Why did they treat me that way? Because of X, Y, Z. Okay. What they said doesn't matter. That's not who I am. Now, all of a sudden, you're tapping into your most authentic self, because you are becoming the person that you can embrace and the person you're excited about, and others are going to be excited about that person as well. Here's the fourth one, and then we're going to talk about how to recognize when you're not being authentic. Authenticity is about your behavior. Now, there are times when you have to look at your behavior and you have to say, okay, is the way I'm behaving, is this helping me to be my higher self? And if you guys haven't figured this out by now, I would say that the true definition of being authentic would be any type of behavior that allows you to serve in your purpose and become your highest, best self, such that you get the results that you desire. And you also, on the road to getting those results, you also serve in that capacity that you're supposed to serve. In other words, you can look back and see where you've helped some people. Okay. And that's, to me, is authenticity. It's not always about how people are making you feel or what they're doing for you. Okay. It's about what are you doing for other people, and how are you behaving? So authenticity is about your behavior. And one of the best things you can do is kind of look at your daily behavior. So with that being said, let's move on. How do you know if you're being authentic? Well, this one I think is a lot easier. And one of I think the easiest ways to determine whether you're being authentic or not is that you're not living, you look at your life and you're always wanting and wishing. If you're always wanting and wishing for something, you are not operating in your most authentic self. If you're always afraid, you see things that you want and they're so close but yet so far, it's because you're not operating in your authenticity. Okay, you have this facade up. And see, the thing about a facade, if you think about it, if you were to make a facade something visual, a facade is like a wall. And so when you put that wall up, nothing can get in. Okay. In other words, nothing, let's say nothing good can get in, and actually nothing bad can get in, because the bad is already in because you're holding on to it. Doesn't make you a bad person, but you're holding on to the very thing that's holding you back. And as a result, you're wanting and wishing. and you're fearing and you're not acting. See, when we're being authentic, we're not worried about what people think about us. We're out here thinking, I'm serving, I'm helping. Will we make mistakes? Absolutely. That's a part of being on the road to a kind of authenticity that you feel comfortable with. That's what it's about. We've been taught that you shouldn't make mistakes. We've been criticized if we do make a mistake. We've been judged if we make a mistake. We've been treated like we're a 2-year-old. Oh, you have to say you're sorry. Okay, sometimes, yeah, do you owe a person an apology? Yes. Okay, there are times when you do, but you never, ever, ever have to apologize for being yourself. Now, if you hurt someone unintentionally, they make you aware of it, yes, be gracious and apologize. But if they want you to change who you are, and who you are is taking you to a level that's allowing you to serve a lot of people, then that one person has to deal with whatever issue they have. You never have to apologize for being you. You don't ever have to do that. So let's move on. So you know that you're not being authentic when you're not living your dream life. In other words, you're settling. And I want to say this. There's a difference. A lot of times we confuse settling with service. We think, okay, I'm going to be a volunteer, or, I'm going to serve these people because they need my help. And in your mind, sometimes you actually don't want to do it. There's nothing wrong with you saying no to something, because where you won't serve in this capacity, you will end up serving in the capacity that you were meant to serve in. Okay. But the thing about it, we confuse settling with doing what everyone else wants to make everyone else happy because we think we're serving them. Well, you know what? There's a difference between settling and serving. And believe me, if you're settling by convincing yourself that, well, this is as good as it gets, and if you're settling, then let me kind of give you a metaphor. It's you're not being authentic, because this is what it feels like. Settling is where you're moving to someone else's music and you don't even like the beat, but you're moving to it because you think you're taking care of them. You think you're serving them. You're making it all about them all the time. But true service, now you decide, you know what, I'm going to operate in my talent, in my calling, and I'm going to breathe and relax and enjoy this beautiful world because I'm supposed to do that. Joy is one of the fruit of the Spirit, and it's one of the fruits of the Spirit, and it's in us. And so if you're not experiencing any kind of joy, then guess what? You're not being authentic. You're being who you think the world expects you to be, or who you were programmed to be, and perhaps a little overhaul is, well, needed. And we're going to talk about that quickly in a moment. But back to the metaphor. The first part of it was settling is moving to someone else's music and you don't even like the beat. So you're out of step. You don't even feel good. But now true service is dancing to your own music. And then all of a sudden, because it's the right music with the right beat, there are others dancing with you. Now, these are the people that you're serving, and these are also the people who are excited to serve with you, to help you accomplish a goal, to help you go to another level, to help you get to where it is you decide that you want to be. So that's how you know that you're not being authentic. No dream life, and you've convinced yourself that it's not a possibility for you. Well, if you look deep inside, and let's go to the part where what does it take for you to really become more authentic? If you look inside and you start to make some firm decisions, or let's say honest decisions, then you're going to see where you can actually make some shifts. This is how your magnificence comes out, okay? Which now is a good time for me to mention that the upcoming masterclass that I have, Shift to Your Magnificence, we're going to be talking about all of that. How do you make that shift? And we're going to go through the components of what it takes and how it feels and what it looks like. And this is a highly interactive masterclass. Okay, so you're going to be spending some really good quality time with yourself and with the others who participate in the class. Simply go to designingyyourlifeachieversacademy.com and look for Shift to Your Magnificence. Okay, or Your Magnificent Life. And you'll see it right there. And you're going to learn how to communicate better with yourself. And it's going to make you a better communicator when you connect with other people. So with that being said, how do you make this shift, or how do you become more authentic? Well, the main key to authenticity is awareness. You have to become aware as to how you're living your life on a daily basis. That's the thing that you have to pay attention to. That's the thing that you have to look at. How am I living my life? And is it taking me in the right direction? And you know what, you guys, I have to say this again, that it took me years to actually embrace my own authenticity. Speaking is one of my gifts. And it was years before I would use that gift. I had used it as a kid, 4th grade, 5th grade, up to I was a teenager. Then I got criticized in a harsh manner. And I was a kid, so I allowed that person to get in my head. And I didn't use this gift for a long time, for years. I think I was 30, maybe 31, when I started doing it again, or I picked that gift up and started using it. But the point that I'm making is that was a part of my authenticity I was burying. One of my gifts that God gave me, I buried that gift. And so at some point I had to tell myself, you know what? This is who you are. And one thing about having a gift, and then we're going to get back to, I'm going to give you some more tips for becoming more authentic. But hopefully this will give you some insight. And the thing about that is when I stepped away from it, I wasn't being authentic. But then once you get back to it, you have to recognize this. If you have the gift of gab, the ability to speak, okay, and convey a message, every single gift, not just speaking, every single gift carries with it an opposite. Okay, in other words, because you have the gift of gab, it can be easy for you to say something that, because you're being, very upfront, it's easy for you to say something that people won't like. Okay. Of course, it's always my goal and desire to say things that will inspire people, enlighten people. And they might not like everything, but to operate in truth, the truth of the words that I'm speaking. So the point that I'm making, though, is I had to make a decision in the name of authenticity. I'm just going to give it my best. Do I think about what I'm going to say? Most of the times. On a personal level, I think for a minute. And sometimes I try to deliver it right. It doesn't always come out right. It depends on, because of the receiver. They're not receiving it right. Which means, well, I may not be delivering it correctly. And I'm willing to face that. That's also part of authenticity. It's being willing to face things. Authenticity is not about perfection. Okay. It is about you embracing all of who you are. Okay. It is about you acknowledging, I talked about the strengths, but it's also about you saying, okay, this is an area that I could use a little work in. And people who are authentic, they're not hiding behind this facade that says I have to know everything and everything has to be perfect and I have to get it right all the time. I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and guess what? I'm still making mistakes. And as long as I live, I'm going to make more mistakes. Why? Because I'm constantly trying new things and I'm learning new things. And every time, okay, I'm not just going to get it all right the first time. Some things I will, but those are not the most challenging things. So let's get back to authenticity or how to actually kind of tap into your own authenticity. So as I said, the main key to tapping into your authenticity is awareness. Become aware of who you are. Okay. And also take a look at And when I say who you are at the core, what's going on inside you, and what is this vision that you have in your head? If you could see your most perfect self, what does he or she look like? What do they look like? Okay. What is that person in you? Okay, that's your higher self that's showing you these amazing things, and it's connected to you making that shift to your magnificent life. So awareness is key, and there's a lot to learn about awareness, but we don't have time to talk about it on this podcast. We will talk about it in depth and what it means, and I've got a lot of interactive exercises for you to do in the course and the masterclass, because it's a masterclass and a course, and it's fun. Awareness. The other thing is reflection. You have to take the time and look back over your life and see if you like what life, the picture. Okay, it's a rerun, because you've lived it, you've been there, done that, but you need to look at it with a different eye and see if you like the rerun. How does it look? Is it bringing you closer to what you want? Do you have more friends? Do you have less friends? Do you have people who like you, people who don't like you? And here's the thing. Sometimes people who don't like you, it's not because there's something wrong with you. Sometimes it's because they feel a little bit threatened because you're willing to grow and step out and be your highest and best self. And they're used to being more subdued. And so it bothers them. It makes them a little bit nervous. So it doesn't mean you necessarily have to change, but you do want to reflect on your life. You get to decide, as long as who you are, it's not hurting other people. Okay. Then you can reflect and you get to decide what you want to change and what you don't want to change. And I want to say this to you, the road to authenticity, that's not always an easy road. So this isn't about making it easy for you. This is about giving you that kind of understanding so that you'll go through the process and get to where it is you desire to be. So awareness, reflection, and so you have to be honest, but be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And I've been saying this for years on the podcast. Just because there's some things that you need to correct so that you can win, that does not mean that you have to beat yourself up about it. We all have to learn some things. We all are growing. And as long as you're living, that's why when people go, I'm too old to change, that's a conscious choice, a conscious decision that they've made. But age is, and being able to change, you can change. You can change your thinking. Okay. And so you can kind of create, I guess, that new wineskin. You know, the Bible talks about not putting old wine into new wineskin. Well, if you change your thinking, you're creating a new wineskin. And now you can start to do something different. And here's a really good example. Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. Okay. And so if you look at that, you will see in the end the change that was made after the three ghosts visited Ebenezer Scrooge. And, you know, he was not a nice man, but after the three ghosts visited him, then he became a very nice man. He changed his thinking, and he was not a young man. So being authentic, it can start at any time, but you have to make that decision. All right. So the main keys would be awareness, reflection, being honest but kind to yourself. And then, you know what, take the time to write your story or rewrite your story. What is your story, your own story? Not the story someone's given you, not the box someone has put you in, not all of the things that you've been told that you're not. Okay, anything that takes you away from being your highest and best self, those things aren't true. Which means if you've adopted those ways of thinking, it means that you are, you're not being authentic. Anything that makes you authentic, it takes you to a higher level. And here's the final thing that I'm going to share with you guys, is that it takes you to a higher level. And I said that anything that takes you away from being your highest self. And I said that all the negative things that you were told, that these things are not true. Now, I want to say this. If you've been told some negative things about yourself that you perhaps need to take a look at, still, those things aren't true. That's not the authentic you. The authentic you is who God says you are. Loving, kind, gentle. You have these fruits of the Spirit in you. Okay. And so you have to discover, how do I bring that part of me out? How do I develop the emotional intelligence so that I can allow myself to feel? Okay. Feel in a positive manner. Okay. Not carry negativity, not carry anger, not carry jealousy. Those things are not a part of your authenticity. I know you'll probably read books that tell you to embrace all of who you are. Yes, you have to embrace all of who you are initially, but you don't have to accept it. Okay. It's kind of like I talked about yesterday, and we're going to wrap up on this. I talked about yesterday that I had to kind of go into redesign mode because I have to exercise more, which I'm on track. I was on it today, and I'll be on it again tomorrow. And so I talked about doing that. And the point that I'm making here is, okay, having some extra weight, okay, fine. I'm embracing that, but that doesn't mean I keep it. That doesn't mean it's healthy for me. That doesn't mean it's part of who I am, you see. So I have to chisel away some of that. Okay. The parts that doesn't serve me. So I hope that makes sense when I put it in a physical, give a physical visual. So that's the same thing with certain types of attitudes. Okay. And then when you start to kind of chip away at those things, then the better attitudes are going to come out. Those attitudes that are more productive and more conducive to your success. So with that being said, you guys, you can go to designingyourlifeachieversacademy.com and or click on the link in the show notes, and you can register to attend the Shift to Your Magnificent. It's a class, masterclass, and a course. It's highly interactive. It's 3 days, and it's lots of fun, but it's also some deep learning and some deep discoveries on your part, and uncovering certain beliefs that perhaps might be holding you back and keep you from going all out. And just because it's all out April, that doesn't mean you stop going all out when we go into May and the rest of the months or for the rest of your life. So we're going to talk about those things, and we're going to have some fun with it. Yes. And as I said, some of this will, will cause you to think and dive a little deeper into who you would like to be. And it's like a sculpture, or you start with this lump of clay, and then you're going to start to mold or remold, or since we're in redesign mode, or you're going to redesign, and you're going to tap into your most powerful self. And this is what I call doing life with power. And this is where you discover that you are in fact built by design to win, and you're going to take your goal achievement to a whole nother level. And you're actually going to feel that authenticity. You're going to be happier, and it's just going to just open up your life. I think if we all kind of get into that mode, I think it'll be a lot less complaining, a lot less people worried about what's going on in the world, things that we can change, and the parts that we can't change, we won't stress over it. We'll just make a commitment to being our best, and you'll see how the shift comes really across the board. So I could go on and on about this. As I said, talking about authenticity, there's a lot more to be said, and I may drop a few tidbits in some of the future podcasts. But for now, I am going to say goodbye. And tomorrow, where we talk about business, but I think with a lot of the people that I coach, I love talking about the power of your self-image, because when you can adopt the right self-image and connect it to the business, because you are running that business, we're going to talk about that, the power of your self-image when it comes to business success. So with that being said, you guys, do life with power, because you're built by design to win.